Hi, this is the Wrestling Dr. Hal Lee for Pro Wrestling Extra. And I'm sitting here with Teddy Stigma, who's agreed to do an interview with me, and I appreciate that.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure, absolutely.
Okay, you're another person that I've looked at on YouTube.
Right.
And looked at your matches. Very impressive what you've done. Now, you've been in the business since '06.
Right. Yes.
So you haven't been in the business a long time, but this is going on 6 years.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of experience. You've been around different promotions.
Correct.
About how many promotions have you worked for?
I really couldn't tell you. I've worked all up and down the East Coast, so, you know, there's so many little promotions that, you know, what is it, probably 50, you know, like just, I haven't really been keeping track, actually. You know, it's funny because a lot of people keep track of, like, every single match they've had. I don't remember any of that stuff.
You just take the bookings when you can get them.
There you go, right, yeah. Pin me, pay me, you know?
All right, now, you were trained by Adam Flash.
Originally, I was trained by Adam Flash, among others, yes.
Right, and that was at the EWA Pain Factory.
Right. He wasn't actually a trainer at the Pain Factory. Like, you know, I was trained at the Pain Factory. I drove an hour each week also to train with Adam Flash, so it kind of just all meshed together, so yeah.
But now you're training...
Now I train up at the Team 3D Academy with Bubba and Devon, and I started there 3 years ago. So now at this point, you know, I'm kind of phasing that out as well. I was promoted about 1.5 years after starting there to being one of their stand-in trainers, you know, when they couldn't make it in. So, you know, I've done pretty well there. Okay,
that's good. You know, in your early part of your career, you had a valet. You did some unusual outfits you wore in the ring. Now, you've transferred into a different...
I have so many ideas in my mind about like, who I want to be and, you know, what I want to act like and everything, and just different characters and everything floating around that, you know, I do different ones depending on where I am. So at one point I had a valet. That was actually more recently, within the last year or so. Very early in my career when I was in a tag team with a guy by the name of Ryan McBride that a few people have heard of. We had a valet back then as well. Back then it was more of just a fiery baby face, do cool moves and flips kind of a thing. Now, in this part of my career, I focus more on character, so, you know, that's why I have like 4 of them.
Okay, your entrance music is a little different. How'd you pick that out?
Whenever I was doing a serial killer cross-dresser gimmick or character, I used the music from Silence of the Lambs. Big fan of the movie. Big fan of the Wild Bill character in the movie, you know. And so there's a part where he's putting makeup on, and the song by Q Lazarus, "Goodbye Horses," is playing. So that's the music that I put into my gimmick. As a serial killer, creepy freak, you know.
Now, folks, I want you to do something. I want you to take the time to go to YouTube and check out what he's talking about, his early part of his career. It was absolutely one of the most entertaining things I have seen. I really enjoyed it. Now, that probably sounds not like what I mean. I mean, I enjoyed his wrestling part of it. So let me ask you this now.
Wrestling was okay too.
The wrestling was excellent. That's what I'm telling them to see, is go see your wrestling, even in the early part of your career. Matter of fact, one of the things I noticed was the little vignette you did with your valet was really well done. I was very impressed with that.
Okay.
In the pool and swimming.
Oh, the pool, right. Yeah. That was all.
I like that.
It was all decent.
It was good. Now, there was another thing I picked up was one time you were working as a heel.
Yeah.
And you're going to the ring, you pass a girl, she holds up a picture, you snatch it out of her hand and rip it apart.
Ripped it apart.
Tell us that story.
Well, it could have ended there. I guess, you know, a lot of times when I tell people about this, I hadn't been a heel that much in my career at this point. You know, I was like 3 years in, and I'd mostly been a babyface. So we had this big match, a lot of build-up, and all I wanted to do as a heel was rip something up, because it's like my favorite thing is when a heel rips up somebody's sign, like, and then everybody just wants to spit on him. That's awesome. So going down the ramp, and this girl holds out like a little picture, you know, like a what is it, like a, you know, a 4x6 picture, you know, like an index card size picture. I'm like, well, it's not a poster, but, you know, I'll rip it up anyway. Hell. So rip the thing up, throw it back at her. That entire side of the audience just goes nuts, just booing at me. I mean, it was like they wanted to rip my head off. And I was like, this is a better reaction than I could have hoped for, you know? Like, I had no idea this would happen. And I was wondering why it was such a good reaction. Well, so on, we have the match, blah, blah, blah. We do a little thing after the match. It was actually my going away match from the state of Maryland, cage match. We end the match. I kind of get back on the side of the fans again with a promo at the end of the match. After the show, I'm out signing autographs, selling 8x10s, what have you. And a woman comes up to me, and she has this ripped up picture that I'd thrown back into the crowd, and she says, "My daughter tried to give you this because she's always loved you so much." And I was like, already kind of heartbroken, you know, like I felt bad, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I was like, "Well, you know, where's your daughter? I'd love to say hi to her." She's like, "Well, she's not really sure she wants to talk to you because she's really upset and she's been crying this entire time." And she's like, "She's right over there." And it was like a movie. She steps out of the way, and there's this little girl, mentally, physically disabled, in a wheelchair, and just, it was the saddest thing I've ever seen, and I was a part of it, you know. It was like I was watching it on a screen, except I was there. And this poor little girl is just crying her eyes out, and I'm like, oh man, I felt so bad. So I wrote a personalized, you know, note on an 8x10 and signed it, and I said, you know, give this to her, you know, hopefully we can make amends. And by the end of the night, the girl actually did get out of her wheelchair and walk up to me and give me a great big hug. So it was pretty rewarding.
You made a fan for life, you know, even after making her cry.
Right,
dude.
right, which is the goal, I think.
That is the
professional
goal.
wrestling.
Okay, now, that was a great story, let me tell you. I appreciate you telling that on here, but let's talk a little bit. I want to ask you some questions about wrestling now.
Yeah.
You know, in the business, we're in the business to entertain.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole thing. The fans mean everything to you.
Right.
And the fans, some of them understand the psychology of a match. Now, most guys learn the psychology of a match in their first year in the business when they go to school and everything. Can you tell us what you've learned through there about how to work a crowd, get them up, take them down?
You know, it's funny that I didn't really learn. You can learn basic psychology in your first year in the business, but there's a lot of kind of lackluster schools out there, and they can tell you like this is basically how it works. But to really get the finer points, I had to go to Team 3D to get all that stuff. And so really in the last 3 years is when I've gotten better with working crowds and everything like that. And I just feel like it's something that is really based on experience, but you gotta have the right kind of training too. And I've gotten to the point now where I can go out as a babyface or a heel and generally, you know, win over a crowd as a baby or as a heel. You know, there's so many little things. As a babyface, the trick is to just make them feel bad for you and look at everybody in the crowd. Like, that's pretty much what I do. I watch a lot of Ricky Steamboat. Every time he gets hit, he just gets up and looks at everyone. He turns all the way around so that everybody can see him, and then they all cheer for him whenever he wins. You know, so like it's simple, yet it's actually crazy complicated. You know?
It is, and you're absolutely correct. I absolutely agree with you. It's experience. It's exactly the same thing on any job that there is. You know, you're not the greatest carpenter in the world in the first year. You start nailing nails and boards.
Yeah.
It takes you about 5 years, and it's the same way with wrestling. I agree with you. The more experience, time in the ring, the better you're going to be.
Right.
And you have progressed.
Yeah.
You know, in looking at those matches and seeing, you see what you're progressing. We're going to put your match tonight will be on our website. So when everybody come to our website, watch your match. They'll see this interview there too. Thank you for coming in and doing this with us.